I had to get it ready for the house to come in and put all the ledger boards on it and everything. So they brought in the houses, and they had to put them on with a crane because the garage was in the way. And believe me, cranes are not cheap. But we got the house put on. So then in, I think it was August or September of 2005, we moved into the house. The trucks dropped the two halves of the house out on the road. We were waiting for the crane to show up. It was a little bit late getting here. So they're just checking things over while we wait. Again, I apologize for the video because it's a copy of a VHS tape. So here is my 6 grandchildren at the time, and they're sitting on the little cat that was going to bring the houses in. Here you see the last trucker, he's leaving. There's the houses sitting there waiting to come in. And then they got us all out of the way, and he started to bring the little cat over. It's a cute little thing, but boy could it move that house. He had such control, it was all remote control. He's going to hook up to the first half. Here the crane has showed up, just got here. Here it is backing in. It was quite a process. It was a huge crane. So they had to take it super easy. My neighbor Lynn, he happened to work for the crane company. So they asked him, because he knew the property and knew me, if he would mind setting the house. So he said yes, and he was the one that set the house and ran the crane. Super guy, and very, very good on that crane. And before anybody asks, no, I did not get a break on the price of the crane. Just because he was my neighbor, I paid full price. That's him there getting out of the crane, and they got to keep resetting it in order to make it exactly where he needs it. Because most houses are set from the side, but because of my situation, it had to be set from the end. So he had to put it exactly where he needed it. And also another semi came up, and you'll see that in a few minutes, that had extra weights, counterweights for the back of the crane. Because of setting it from the end, they had to put counterweights on. And just that extra set of weights cost me $1,000. So cranes don't come cheap, but if you need them, you need them. He's still working at getting it exactly where he wants it. Has to be as close to the basement as he can get, because otherwise it would overload the crane and tip it over. So it was a struggle. He made quite a few adjustments to get it exactly where he wanted it. He'd go back and forth, and he'd look at things and make sure it was exactly where it was. Here I'm videoing from the end, I should say, the wife is, and he's still making small adjustments to it. Part of the problem was that I had my septic pipe running out from the little building on the side there, and he had to straddle that with one of his outriggers, so he had to get it exactly right so they wouldn't crush that pipe or my septic tank. So it was a struggle getting it set up, but they did a great job. Here they are starting to put out the outriggers. They extended them all out and checked everything, but as you'll see later, they had to put bigger pads on because the ground was too soft. And you'll see that when the other semi gets in there. The little guy in the foreground, that was my grandson, Mason. He was really enthused about big equipment at the time, so he was in his glory. He just couldn't stop watching them. The other semi has showed up, and here you see that they're lifting these big pads, and they had to put those under the outriggers to support it. And you can see a bunch more on the truck, but they had to put these under the outriggers in order to distribute the weight because of the soft ground. They're swinging it around to the other side for the outriggers on that side. Here they're starting to put the huge counterweight on. They had to take it, and he swung it behind the crane and set it on the truck. And then he swung the crane around and was able to hook up to it. And it took time to do, but they needed that because of the weight of the house that they were putting in. Now they have it set on the truck, and he's swinging the crane around in order to hook it onto the back of the crane itself. And that was quite a process. It took a while to do because he had to put that crane exactly where he needed to be so they could hook up to it. And he had to actually get out and come back and take a look at one point because they were having trouble getting it hooked up. As you can see, now they have it hooked up on the back, and now he's swinging to get ready for the first half of the house that's coming in. And while he was doing that, they were bringing the house in. You can see it in the background there. They have the cradle all hooked up for it. It was a four-line cradle. They hooked it up at 4 spots on the house to lift it. Here they've lifted it about 2 feet just to make sure everything was right before they did the full lift up over the garage. And the guys are checking cables and checking this and checking that to make sure everything is correct before they lift it up over the garage. As you can see, my whole family had a ringside seat to this. They all came up for this lift, and they stayed over a couple days. And it was a fun thing to have them up here. Now you can see they're starting to lift the house. This is at 4 times normal speed, so you can tell that it took a while to get everything the way they needed it. But yeah, it's a slow process, so I speed it up so you wouldn't have to sit through a lot of boring stuff here. This is the second half of the house coming in. The guy with the little cat is bringing it in. This is all happening as soon as they had that other half set. There's guys that went in the basement to take off the trailer tires and everything, and these guys were already bringing in this half. So they worked like they were a very good team. I mean, they worked great together. This is my neighbor Lynn operating the crane. Not only is he a good neighbor, he's one heck of a crane operator. Now they're lifting the second part of the house up over the garage and going to set that in place. Again, I'm running this at 4 times the regular speed because it takes quite a while for it to do. The lady in the foreground there, that's Lynn's wife. She had to get some pictures up close. Well, the house is set. There's a lot of minor things that happened that we don't have video on. Before the guys left, they worked on the roof to make sure it was waterproof before they left. And then they came back a few days later. Another crew came back to put the siding on the ends and along the bottom where they hooked the crane to it. And then they went inside and they had to fix the walls and that to make sure it was a solid home. And they were in and out for about a week before they got it all done. And then I had other work I had to do too, because there was a bunch of finishing stuff I had to do. I had to finish up the septic and get that hooked up through the house and bore a hole through the basement wall. I had to get the well put in through the wall. I had the well, but I had to get it put through the wall so we could put the water pump in the basement. I also had to build 2 stairways, the inside stairway to the basement and the outside stairway to the basement where the butler door was going to go. So that took a while. And then, you got to put handrails up and all the other good stuff, but I had to get that all done because the furnace, that had to be moved. They came in loose in the house, and I had to put that in the basement. I didn't, they did, and hook it all up. Then the water heater, that by their codes, had to be upstairs when they built the house, so I disconnected all of that. I moved that to the basement and hooked it all back up. And the room, the little room that the water heater was in, I converted that to a pantry. So just a lot of different things were going on. A lot of minor stuff that went on after that, planting grass and everything, but that essentially is what it took to get the house to where it is today. And every time I'm out here, I'm trying to make some kind of improvements. So thanks for joining this little odyssey of the history of my cottage. And stay tuned for more things that are going on. I'll be cutting some trees. I'll be putting up another garage. All kinds of different things will be going on. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.